3 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for our news bulletin. Mahistri Rabian. I have all the pleasure to be working with my dear colleague Myrna Al-Ghazawi. Good day to you, Myrna.
Good day to you, Mahistri, and good day to you, all dear viewers. And we're going to start our news bulletin with the headlines. President El-Sisi pinpoints the importance of cooperation with Greece and Cyprus as he inaugurates a trio summit. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli chairs a weekly cabinet meeting on important domestic files. And over 50 Palestinians martyred in Israeli occupation strikes across Gaza in 24 hours.
Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stressed the importance of cooperation among Egypt, Greece and Cyprus on the unfolding conditions in the Middle East, seeking to regain stability and halt escalation in the region. The President made these remarks at the inauguration of the 10th edition of the Trio Cooperation Mechanism Summit among the three countries hosted by Egypt today at Al-Ittihadiyya Presidential Palace. President al-Sisi highlighted the significance of Egypt's cooperation with Greece and Cyprus, particularly in the renewable energy project and green hydrogen field, being a pivotal step towards deeply rooted economic integration amongst them. A three-way business forum is also set to be held on the sidelines of the summit with the attendance of top officials and businessmen working in many sectors.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received today Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis on the sidelines of a three-way summit, which later comprised Cyprus President Nikos Christodoulidis. The meeting asserted the deeply rooted historic ties binding both nations and their willingness to work for the enhancement of their partnership. Boosting bilateral cooperation, particularly in the economic field, featured prominently at the meeting, where the two sides stressed the necessity of intensifying collaboration in the framework of the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, continuing the implementation of an electric power linkage project, as well as continued cooperation in the illegal immigration file. The meeting further tackled the latest regional developments, atop of which is the Palestinian cause, with the parties expressing a keenness to hammer out a ceasefire in Gaza, which would ease the entrance of humanitarian aid to its people. They also pressed for the immediate implementation of the two-state solution, along with holding a ceasefire agreement in Lebanon and launching comprehensive political settlements to the Syrian, Libyan and Sudanese crisis to restore security and stability to the region.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli today chaired a weekly cabinet meeting on important domestic files. Madbouli pointed out that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's speech in the course of the Christmas festivities carried important messages, denoting that the love and fraternity binding Egyptians are a source of power to the homeland, and that thanks to their collaboration they are able to overcome all the hardships despite internal and external challenges. The cabinet probed the efforts for curbing inflation, tightening market control, ensuring the availability of food commodities at affordable prices, as well as developing the education and health sectors. The cabinet also followed up the procedures taken in the industry, investment, exportation and land reclamation file, along with the social protection program and taxation file, in addition to the decisions pertaining to the low-income category.
And the Palestinian Health Ministry said today that 51 people were martyred in different areas across the Gaza Strip in the past 24 hours. In Deir al-Balah city in central Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff expressed hopes to have good things to report on negotiations between the Israeli Occupation Authority and Hamas regarding the release of hostages by the time Trump is sworn into office. Trump has repeated his threat that all hell will break out in the Middle East if Hamas group does not release the hostages by the time he takes office. The outgoing U.S. administration has called for a final push for a peace deal before President Joe Biden leaves office.
A Palestinian official said today that 3 Palestinians, including 2 children, were killed by the Israeli occupation airstrikes on Tamoon village, northern occupied West Bank. Meanwhile, heavily guarded by Israeli occupation forces, dozens of Israeli illegal settlers today stormed into the courtyards of Al-Aqsa Mosque compound from Al-Maghriba gate. The illegal settlers performed religious rituals and led provocative tours across the mosque compound.
The Israeli occupation forces, supported by tanks convoy, advanced into 2 villages of Syria's Qiyantara province, carrying out a violent raid under the pretext of searching for weapons and Hezbollah fighters. The Israeli occupation forces claim to have destroyed weapons depot, mine sweepers and bulldozers in the southern province. Israeli occupation forces also blocked a highway inside a Syrian southern village in the province with a sand barricade, which suspended education in the entire village. The Israeli occupation moves come amid a wider invasion of up to 7 kilometers of the buffer zone between Syria and the occupied Golan Heights.
In France, Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said today that the European Union sanctions in Syria that obstruct the delivery of humanitarian aid and hinder the country's recovery could be lifted swiftly. The United States on Monday issued a sanctions exemption for transactions with governing institutions in Syria for 6 months to ease the flow of humanitarian assistance. Speaking to France Inter-Radio, Barrot said the EU could take a similar decision soon without giving precise timing, while adding that lifting more political sanctions would depend on how Syria's interim rulers handled the transition and ensured exclusivity.
Turkey has threatened to launch a military operation against the Kurdish forces in Syria unless they accepted Ankara's conditions for a bloodless transition after the fall of ex-Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Ankara accuses the Kurdish forces, seen by the West as essential in the fight against Daesh terrorist group, of links to the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party in Turkey. The party has fought a decades-long insurgency against the Turkish state and is listed as a terrorist organization by Ankara and its Western allies.
And Ukraine said today that its forces had hit a Russian oil departure that services Moscow's Air Force, hundreds of kilometers from the warring countries' shared border. Kiev, meanwhile, said overnight that Ukrainian air defense systems had downed 41 Russian drones over the country, while another 22 were downed by electronic jamming systems or were lost by Air Force radars. Separately, in the southern Ukrainian region of Kherson, which the Kremlin claims is part of Russia, authorities said that 2 people had been killed and 5 more were wounded by Russian artillery and attack drones.
South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol faces a new and potentially more robust attempt to arrest him for his insurrection after a top investigator vowed to do whatever it takes to break a security blockade and take in the impeached leader. Protesters supporting and opposing Yoon braved the freezing temperatures to stage rallies on the streets around the presidential compound today after a court reissued a warrant on Tuesday Tuesday to arrest him. Yon is under criminal investigation for insurrection over his failed attempt to impose martial law on December 3rd, a decision that stunned South Korea and prompted the first arrest warrant for a sitting president. He also faces an impeachment trial in the Constitutional Court.
And a fast-moving wildfire in Los Angeles suburb burned buildings and sparked panic, with thousands ordered to evacuate issued overnight as life-threatening winds whipped the region. The fire erupted mid-morning Tuesday and swelled quickly, with dozens of firefighters deployed to battle the blaze, including from the air. The fire came as the area was being hit by seasonal Santa Ana winds that forecasters said could develop into the worst windstorm in a decade.
Economic news. President Abdel Sisi, Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation Alaa Farouk, headed to the Ugandan capital Kampala to participate in the African Union Extraordinary Summit on the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program. On the sidelines of the summit, the Agriculture Minister is due to meet with his African counterparts, representatives of the regional organizations and authorities to review cooperation in the fields of agriculture, food security, as well as means to achieve comprehensive agricultural development on the African continent. The EU summit is due to take place from the 9th till the 11th of January.
And Egypt's bourse index slightly rose at the start of today's trading session, boosted by local and foreign investor purchases against Arab investor sell-offs. The market capital of listed companies added 3 billion Egyptian pounds, so far exceeding 2.2 trillion pounds. The benchmark index EGX 30 marginally climbed 0.01% above the 29,930 point mark. The equal-weighted indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 inched higher, 0.05% and 0.07% respectively.
And to the exciting world of sport, defending champions Al Ahly regained the top of the Egyptian Premier League after beating Smuha 2-0 in a postponed encounter. Mohammed Magdi Afsha opened the...
Dear viewers, by this we come to the end of our news bulletin. You were in the company of myself, Myrna Ghaznawi, along with my dear colleague, Mahisti Rabia.
Thank you so much, Myrna. Thank you so much, our dear viewers, for watching.